To us, the Honourable Prime Minister, Minister of Home Affairs, External Communication and National Development Unit, Minister of Finance and Economic Development, whether in regard to the fight against corruption, he will state the progress achieved in relation to the proposed introduction in the Assembly of legislation, therefore, as announced in the Government Programme 2015-19, in the address of the President of the Republic of Mauritius, excluding the Good Governance and Integrity Reporting Act.
Madam Speaker, as the House is aware, a series of measures were announced in the Government Programme 2015-2019 to fight fraud, corruption, malpractices and irregularities in all aspects of public life, as enunciated at paragraph 246, 248, 249 and 263. Madam Speaker, the House will recall that the presidential address was delivered on Tuesday, 27th of January 2015, when the Honourable Leader of the Opposition was Deputy Prime Minister. And he remained Deputy Prime Minister until his resignation from government as recently as in December 2016. During his tenure of office as Deputy Prime Minister, he chaired a ministerial committee on electoral reforms set up in January 2016 to make recommendations including on financing of political parties bill. Madam Speaker, the Ministerial Committee was set up in January 2016 to examine the different aspects of our electoral system and make appropriate recommendations for reform, including anti-defection measures, the widening of the powers of the Electoral Supervisory Commission, and the financing of political parties. Madam Speaker, Government has pledged to introduce an anti-defection legislation, and as a matter of fact, this issue has been included in the terms of reference of the Ministerial Committee, which has been set up to make recommendations on electoral reform. As the House is also aware, following the resignation of the former chairperson, the Ministerial Committee has been reconstituted with the Minister Mentor as chairperson. For this reason, the work of the committee has been delayed, and I'm informed that the committee will address all the issues I mentioned earlier. Madam Speaker, I would like to point out, however, that anti-defection measures may give rise to complex issues. Madam Speaker, in regard to the financing of political parties, as the House is aware, the then Ministerial Committee had already submitted its proposals on this issue, and the Attorney General's Office has been requested to prepare a draft bill based on the committee's proposals. I am advised that the Attorney General's Office has sought further instructions regarding a number of new issues that will have to be fleshed out by the Ministerial Committee before the bill may be finalized. The issues relate to the following, amongst others: the extent and scope of the new powers to be vested in the Electoral Supervisory Commission, the transparency and disclosure rules that will apply, the mechanism of the control of parties' campaign expenditure, the sanctions and penalties to be imposed, the limits set and the mode of making anonymous donations, and whether certain provisions of the Prevention of Corruption Act and Financial Intelligence and Money Laundering Act should be amended. Madam Speaker, the bill on the financing of political parties will be finalized once these issues are cleared. Madam Speaker, in regard to the commitment of the government to come up with a new Declaration of Assets Act, in reply to PQ B 1028 on 29th of November 2016, the House was informed by the former Prime Minister that a ministerial committee was examining the different aspects of a new regime for the declaration of assets. I am informed that the ministerial committee is left with only a few issues to be fleshed out before finalizing its report. I wish to reassure the House that government will fulfill its commitment and introduce the bill as soon as it is ready. Madam Speaker, I am further informed that the ICAC has developed a draft code of conduct for members of the National Assembly, including ministers. The draft code is intended to provide strict guidelines for the conduct of members of the National Assembly as well as public officials. In parallel, in line with paragraph 24A of the Government Programme 2015-2019, the Ministry of Civil Service and Administrative Reforms has also developed a draft code of conduct for ministers. I understand that amongst its many provisions, this draft code includes the issue of acceptance of free travel. The ICAC has set up a working committee to examine the provisions of the two draft codes with a view to determining whether they should be harmonized or merged. The working committee comprises representatives from my office, the Solicitor General's office, the Ministry of Civil Service and Administrative Reforms, and the National Assembly, and ICAC. And I am also informed that the Prevention of Corruption Act, which was enacted in April 2007 and which has been in existence for now nearly 15 years, is being reviewed. Now, with a new management in place since July 2016, a committee was set up at the level of ICAC to carry out an in-depth review of the Prevention of Corruption Act in order to strengthen the legislative and institutional framework so that it responds to emerging challenges in fighting financial crime. A first draft is being finalized and will be submitted to the Parliamentary Committee for its consideration in the near future. Madam Speaker, paragraph 246 of the Government Programme 2015-2019 provides that, I quote, "Government has a mandate for change and will relentlessly fight fraud, corruption and financial crime. To that effect, a Financial Crime Commission will be set up to act as an apex body to oversee the ICAC, the Financial Intelligence Unit, and the Enforcement Department of the Financial Services Commission," unquote. Madam Speaker, the former Minister of Financial Services, Good Governance and Institutional Reforms had the responsibility of coming up with the Financial Crime Commission, but he has failed to do so. I have requested, therefore, the new Minister of Financial Services, Good Governance and Institutional Reforms to look into this issue as a matter of urgency and to give drafting instructions to the Attorney General's office. Madam Speaker, similarly, a draft fraud bill was under discussion and the Law Reform Commission has produced a report thereon. After comments from the Attorney General's office and requests for drafting instructions from the Ministry of Financial Services, Good Governance and Institutional Reforms, since 11th July 2016, no such instructions were received. I have again requested the new Minister of Financial Services, Good Governance and Institutional Reforms to look into the matter and issue drafting instructions. Madam Speaker, as announced in the Government Programme 2015-2019, the process of tendering procurement and contract allocation and management is continuously being reviewed to ensure greater transparency and prevent corrupt practices in the allocation of contracts in the public sector, the recent one being the need to require the approval of the CPB with respect to variation of major contracts. Furthermore, a new process for e-procurement system has been introduced to reduce human interaction in the tendering procedures and prevent potential for fraud and corruption. In addition, a code of conduct on procurement for public officials was issued jointly by ICAC and the PPO to clarify the role and responsibilities of public officers in carrying out procurement activities. At the level of the Mauritius Revenue Authority, the following measures have been taken to prevent any corrupt practices at the level of customs, VAT and income tax. 1. Electronic filing and electronic payment of bill of entry, VAT and income tax returns. 2. Examination of goods at the level of MRA customs is being carried out under CCTV cameras. 3. Hotline electronic platform to report complaints and corrupt practices. 4. An internal affairs division has been set up within the MRA to conduct inquiry into alleged cases of malpractices by officers of MRA. At the international level, Mauritius has joined the OECD-based erosion and profit shifting inclusive framework in November 2016 and has committed to meet the international standards to combat international tax evasion and thereby preventing fraud and malpractices by international operators. In our relentless fight against drugs and drug trafficking, which often give rise to corruption, we have adopted a zero-tolerance policy. The House is fully aware of the recent detection and seizures of great quantities of drugs. Such results are only the harbinger of still greater surveillance and proactive exchange of intelligence and further results to come. Madam Speaker, Rome was not built in one day. We mean business and vital and sensitive legislation and related measures to fight corruption cannot materialize overnight, as we need at all times to guard against unintended consequences. Due care and caution are therefore required to ensure that there is no loophole in the legislation and in the measures to be implemented. Work is progressing smoothly, and we will deliver all that we have promised in the government program. Madam Speaker, indeed we promise to deliver, and we will deliver what we promised.
It's a bit early for clapping, I think. It's a bit early for clapping. Madam Speaker, just words and no action. Article 248 of the Presidential Address, this is what it says, Madam Speaker. Government will eradicate fraud and corruption in all aspects of public life. Meanwhile, le pays a dégringolé de 5 places in Transparency International Corruption Perception Index. My first question is, Madam, is this: since the Prime Minister has talked about POCA, is he going to amend the Prevention of Corruption Act to include the President as a public official, thereby doing away with his or her, it will apply to anyone, his or her immunity?
Madam Speaker, I have just mentioned in my reply that there is a committee at the level of ICAC which is looking at all the aspects of the legislation, and that will be making proposals with regard to the review of the Prevention of Corruption Act. Let us wait for those recommendations. Government, of course, will look into those recommendations, and whatever needs to be added on top of that, we will look into that.
I would like the Honourable Prime Minister to consider seriously including the President in that definition of a public official. Now, Madam Speaker, with regard to traffic d'influence, I would like to ask the Honourable Prime Minister whether he will include MPs that may be bought to cross the floor and join the government in return for a ministerial post or PPS, etc. Will he include that under POCA as well, Prevention of Corruption Act, so that ICAC can investigate and even make it retrospective, retroactive? Why not?
Madam Speaker,
Honorable Bhagwan, please.
Madam,
Honorable Jagru. Honorable Bhagwan, please.
the Leader of the Opposition is now very concerned with the issue of transfuge. Always? I think he was, maybe he has forgotten. Let me remind him that he was a member of the Labour PMSD government. Initially, MSM also. And then when we had left the government, there were 3 members who crossed the floor from the MSM. Mireille Martin, Jim Sitaram, and Pratibha Bula.
Interrupt.
Now, 6? You bought 6?
Honorable Thierry Henry.
Ah,
Honorable Thierry Henry and Honorable Sewaksin, please don't disrupt the debate.
Honorable Henry is saying that they have bought 6. Well, now, we all know what happened. And therefore, we have been the victim of crossing the floor. And we are very concerned with that issue. And therefore, we have been looking at legislation. In fact, the honourable member, the honourable leader of the opposition was himself chairing a committee. And there was a proposal with regard to the amendment to be brought to the Rodrigues Regional Assembly. And we have looked into that with regard to whether the recommendations that were made would stand the test of constitutionality. I must say, they are very complex issues, and we are still looking at it. And eventually, if we are able to come up with such a legislation, I believe that would be in the interest of all parties concerned.
Madam Speaker, the Honourable Prime Minister may not be aware that the law on Rodrigues was approved by SLO, State Law Office, and sent to Cabinet, and it was removed at the request of the then Prime Minister from the final bill. Madam Speaker, I would like to say that in the last electoral manifesto, l'Alliance des Peuples came up very strongly. Une loi anti-transfuse. So no use coming back to the previous government. What the previous government is of no concern to the thousands, hundreds of thousands of people who have voted for this government and who are listening to the television now. Une loi anti-transfuse was in the electoral program, Madam Speaker, and this is why the people of Mauritius want to know why that is not being done. Firstly, in terms of anti-defection bill. Secondly, in terms of including under POCA, where surely there cannot be any constitutional issues.
With regard to the first issue that has been mentioned by the Honourable Leader of the Opposition, I have said, true it is that recommendations have been made when he was chairing that committee. But let me correct him that after, yes, I will correct you. You listen. After the matter has been looked at by the State Law Office, there were a number of legal issues that had arisen and that were sent back to the committee for us to review. This is the exact situation. It is not for not of wanting to bring the such legislation, Madam Speaker. Now, with regard to the second issue, yes, you are talking about anti-defection law. Well, again, you have been in government 2005, 2010. You have not been able to bring a... Yes, we are not yet...
Order, please. Honorable Perrault. What is it? From a sitting position, you are not allowed to make comments.
I admit, Madam Speaker, that up to now, we have not been able to bring a bill before the House. Yes. But then, you should also, because why I'm saying this? Because you know very well the complexity of this matter. You have been in government also. You've been working on that. And I know...
Order.
And
Order, please.
Madam Speaker, it is not, and let me say, it is not only when you have been in government previously. the MMM. What charam are you talking? We have been together in government 2005. Anti-defection, we have been looking at it. But we have not been able to come up with a bill. Because you know why? Because it is a very complex issue. Some countries who have adopted anti-defection legislation, unfortunately, they have ended up with more problems than solutions. Therefore, we constantly need to look at it, and we welcome if there are proposals, if there are any ideas. Of course, we are open. We will look into that. We'll look into that.
It's the third time that I'm drawing your attention. I'll be very patient, but then mind yourself.
Thing about not being able to pass a law. There's another thing. We've gone completely against the spirit of the Alliance Electorale Manifesto in taking 5 transfers into the government, and the people can judge that, Madam Speaker. As for Rodriguez is concerned, I maintain that it was approved by the SLO, and then there was some comment, and we forgot about it at the request of the then Prime Minister, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker,
Leader of Opposition, I'll just draw your attention to the fact that you're not allowed to mention things which are by nature secret and which has been the subject of discussions between ministers when you were in government. Please.
Madam Speaker, we are talking about freedom of information. Madam Speaker, again, what is the point of freedom of information? Madam Speaker.
Order, please. Order.
Madam Speaker, in April 2016, a whole year ago, Cabinet, government approved my committee's work on financing of political parties. Completely approved it. Huh? It was sent to SLO and it's been lying there for 1 year. We have time for the prosecution commission bill. In 2 hours it can come to government. But this financing of political parties, 1 year, SLO is still working on it, Madam Speaker. Does the Honourable Prime Minister find that acceptable?
Let me maintain again what I have said, because the Honourable Leader of the Opposition maybe he's not aware when he has left government. I maintain again that there are legal issues which have arisen with regard to the provisions of the recommendations of the anti-defection proposals that were made. Secondly, the financing of political parties. I have just answered. I have said that the matter is being looked at and being finalized at the level of our committee and is being worked out together with the views of the State Law Office. Because there are a number of things I have mentioned. I don't want to repeat again to lose the time of the House, but I have mentioned those, amongst others, those issues that are now being looked at from the legal perspective. Once these are cleared, we will come to this House with a bill.
And Speaker, the Honourable Prime Minister had beautiful words to say on procurement. I would ask him, in his own Finance Act, or last year, he introduced Clause 6 for the CEB, Central Electricity Board. But there's been so much talk about that. And it says it actually, Madam, allows the board of the CEB to create companies, any number of companies he wants to create, and, Madam Speaker, Section 6.3 says this: the Public Procurement Act shall not apply to any procurement exercise effected by a company set up under this subsection. It's here. If your memory is not good, I will table it, Madam. I will table it.
Order, please. Order, I said. Honourable Zagrou. Honourable Rupan, please. Order, I said.
On Finance Act, so you cannot get away from answering, Madam Speaker. What is the rationale, the reason for this? Because we are supposedly putting matters clean in terms of public procurement, and I can take me to express, I will not do so.
Madam Speaker, I will look into this matter, and I don't think that this is the interpretation that we are giving. But okay, I will look into.
Honorable Thierry Henry, you keep interrupting. This is the second time I'm drawing your attention to this.
I will look into the matter, and if need be, of course, either the minister responsible for this issue will come up with a statement, or I will give the explanation.
And all understand English, plain English, Madam Speaker. I'll table it in case she has trouble finding it in the Finance Act. Madam Speaker, on the declaration of assets, I would like to ask Honourable Prime Minister, when was the Honourable Colandavelu Committee set up? When was that? I think it's about 2 years ago. And what has happened to this small amendment that was supposed to be made to a bill that had already been finalized on declaration of assets?
It is not correct to say that a small amendment has to be made. I don't know what was your intention when you were in government, whether it would have been a small amendment. But we are looking at the whole bill. And Madam Speaker, I can tell the House that the committee chaired by the Honourable Deputy Prime Minister is going to finalize this, the working of this report pretty soon, and of course will have to be debated. We will come soon.
No
need to wait.
When you ask your question, the minister sits down and listens to your question. Now, when he is replying, you also should give him the opportunity to reply. Let's try to be fair.
Obviously, Madam Speaker, I can't give an exact date of when the matter will be finalized. First of all, the matter will be finalized, and then it has to be discussed at the level of cabinet, and then when we will seek the views of stakeholders also, probably, and then we'll come to this House.
When? The question is, his neighbour can surely remember when the committee was set up. That was the question.
It was in January 2016, I'm informed.
Yes, Honourable Bhagwan. Honourable Sisanko, what is it? Honourable Sisanko, please. Honourable Rupan, this is the second time that I am drawing your attention to interruptions. Yes,
Madam Speaker, the Prime Minister has informed the House, the country and the nation of the intention of government to legislate, come up with new legislation concerning this anti-corruption issue. And ICAC has been given responsibility to work out the document. But pending that, are we not seeing every Tuesday, even every day, these big potentats in the parastatal bodies, governmental committees, like the State Bank, we have a chairperson, and the Mauritius Telecom, recently the Trust Fund, these people, these potentats, are daily engaged in corruption. We're being procurement, jouissance. So can the Prime Minister inform the House? Reste tranquille, do. Can the Prime Minister inform the House what immediate action intends to take against these potentats who are earning lots of millions of rupees, more than 1 million every month?
Madam Speaker, the honourable member is making gratuitous allegations, just saying, as usual, blah blah blah. You can't even give evidence. You don't have anything to say.
Honourable Bhagwan, I have uttered your names 4 times, right, when I am on my feet, right? So, you've asked your question. But when I utter names and 4 times, now next time I'll have to act. Okay? Yes. Now, would you continue? Yes, Honourable Prime Minister, you finished? Or?
I'm saying, yes, Madam Speaker, I'm saying making general comments and general remarks instead of coming with specificities. And to show that you are serious, you should come with substance.
Honourable Balu Modi.
This government was elected with 12 priorities to be executed in the first 3 months of this government. Now we are more than nearly 3 years of this government. Combattre la fraude et la corruption. La déclaration of Assets Act sera amendée pour inclure les propriétés acquises sous le prête-nom et la publication de toutes les informations dans la gazette du gouvernement. Can I ask the Honorable Prime Minister, when does he intend to come with a declaration of Assets Act? 3 months have passed, nothing has been done. In the meantime, we know what's happening in the country. And will this declaration of not only MPs, it will include also chairperson of parastatal bodies, advisors to ministers, and directors and CEO of government-owned companies. So can we know when government intend to come an urgent matter and to have this declaration made public, not to be kept in the drawer of the ICAC?
Madam Speaker, I am happy that the Honourable Member is making such remark today, because the time will come when within this mandate we will come before this House with a bill, and then I will remind him what he has said today.
Yes, Robert
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, may I refer to Presidential Address Government Programme 2005-2010, paragraph 30. I will paraphrase very quickly.
Yes, please, quickly, Honorable Ratna, because we are running out of time.
They also took time to paraphrase to say...
No. I'm sorry. I have said that we are running out of time. Ask your question quickly. Honorable Balumudi.
Paraphrasing paragraph 30, my ministers will adhere to a code of ethics and integrity and will invite senior public officials and managers of the private sector to do the same. Paragraph 31, the law setting up the ICAC will be reviewed and the investigation and prosecution of fraudulent or corrupt acts will have to take place within legal framework that is more certain, result-oriented. Can I ask the Right Honourable Prime Minister Can I ask the Right Honourable Prime Minister and the only Prime Minister whether from record he can state to the House today, since 2005 to 2010, when the leader of opposition was in government, whether any of these happened?
Obviously, the record speak for itself that this did not happen, but on the contrary, the then Prime Minister did the opposite of what is stated here.
Leader, last question for Leader of Opposition.
International organizations agree. I just quoted Transparency International. That corruption now in Mauritius is worse than ever, at a historical worst. And I want to ask the Honourable Prime Minister, you are the last to talk. Now, I want to ask the Honourable Prime Minister to give a commitment to the nation, a precise timetable, no beating about the bush, when all these laws that have been promised, including freedom of information, are going to come to this House for debate and for passing.
Madam Speaker, I have said that in my reply, that there are different...
Yes.
I've said that there are different committees looking at different bills that we propose to bring before this House. Obviously, they are not matters which are simple. They are complex. That is why, in fact, previous governments have not been able to bring those legislation before the House. And therefore, if you want to speak in my place, you can speak.
Yes. Honorable Mohammed.
Making comments.
Please, don't interrupt. We are running out of time already. I've given already 5 additional minutes.
And therefore, Madam Speaker, I can assure the House that all those legislations, once they are finalized...
Please proceed with your answer.
Pepsi Party is making a lot of money.
Yes.
I don't know. He needs a drink.
Order. there on this side of the House, and Honorable Jagru, please don't interrupt Honorable Jagru. Honorable Jagru? Yes.
So, therefore, as I said in my reply, Madam Speaker, once those bills will be finalized at the level of government, then they will be introduced in the House.
Time is over.